Why are breakfast things no, why are breakfast foods a thing? This was just a random thought that I just came up with. But bear with me. Breakfast arises in culture. And so when I speak about breakfast, I mean the first meal of the day, usually before noon. A big part of why we have breakfast is work or school culture. Because you have your wake up where you wake up and then you have your time period of working and then coming back from home. And in between this there's some time. Or at least there might not be time, but there should be. But at least there's this entire span of time where you can't really eat. So we devised a way to basically we decided to eat before work, in the middle of work as lunch, and then after work as dinner. So I think that plays a major role. And this evolved essentially from being farmers, I think. From being farmers, you would work, so you would eat breakfast, you would work, maybe or maybe not take a break, and then eat again. So I think it evolved from that. But having breakfast foods also introduces some sort of variety in a way. Having like special breakfast foods that are just quarantined off only for breakfast, although I do disagree with that point. And variety serves as a way to not get bored. But I argue that if you're getting bored with the foods you're eating, you're either not. It means you don't know how to cook and you don't know how to experiment. Basically, you aren't learning. You aren't learning new ways to eat. And you should always be learning. And so, the tropes of breakfast foods should be dismantled. I don't think that you need breakfast foods whatsoever, because food is just food. Thinking that there are foods to be eaten at certain times of the day for certain meals is foolish and incorrect. Food is food. Why do we eat food? We eat food for nutrients. What are these nutrients? At the larger level, macronutrients. At the smaller level, micronutrients. Food is just a collection of nutrients that we use or we get, and thus our body uses. Get enough of these and your body will be fine. And it's enough. So variety in food really just serves as a way to get all of these nutrients, because no food has all of them that we know of. Or at least if there's a food that is a combination of like other foods. And the thing is, you don't actually need that much variety for all your needs. Like this thought of needing endless variety or always having more variety comes from people who don't get all the nutrient needs. It comes from the people who eat the least nutrient dense foods, or is most applicable to them. If you eat a healthy diet, if you have a healthy eating practice, you don't need that much variety at all. It's more this age is an age of overabundance with information, with food, with electricity, things like physical things that we buy. All of it, so much overabundance. And the greater skill is to siphon out what is important. To be minimalistic with the things you have, the information you consume, the food. Although food is a little more complicated because there's the enjoyment aspect of it as well. But for nutrient bases, being minimalistic for all of these is a much more useful skill. So what about the enjoyment of food? I don't think you should eat food just solely for the enjoyment. Food should be eaten first and primarily first for their nutrients, and then secondarily for enjoyment. It shouldn't be the reverse. Because if you use the reverse only firstly for enjoyment and then for nutrient basis, what you get is a bunch of unhealthy foods. Because we have learned how to hack our senses. So in terms of variety for personal satisfaction, let's say, I'd say that's where the most variety comes in from, perhaps. The variety of enjoyment. That is what, or the enjoyment aspect leads to the most variety. Because you don't need that much variety for all your nutrient needs. So it's mostly coming from the desire for like desserts, desire for like foods that will bring you more pleasure. I mean, think about all the snacks that we have in the US. There's so much. There's so many. And so finally, the culture of breakfast foods, I believe, has led to an advent of unhealthy foods, primarily unhealthy breakfast foods. So what do you think about when someone says breakfast? Pancakes, waffles, French toast, bacon, lots and lots of maple syrup, etc. All having minor nutrient compositions. Primarily carbohydrates they're primarily just carbohydrates, but for the first two. Bacon has some protein, but it's primarily saturated fat. Maple syrup is basically all sugar. They're all not nutrient dense. And that is why you need more variety. Because if you eat breakfast like this, you literally need variety, otherwise you won't be getting all your nutrients. If you're already getting your nutrients, you wouldn't need more variety. See how it works? And so what about, I think that in general, lunch and dinner meals are better than breakfast. Like, what do you think about lunch? Okay, burgers? Okay, sure. Depends on what burger you get. Salads, entree dishes. In general, I think I'll still say lunch and dinner are better than breakfast. Because for the most part, an English breakfast composes of primarily carbohydrates. And you can say the same for lunch and dinner. But I'd say more so, lunch and dinner have more variety and thus have a better chance of being more healthy. It doesn't like this culture of breakfast being only these couple of foods, which are pretty much only carbohydrates, while the other two have variety. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. This video is kind of a random thought. I just feel like we shouldn't restrict. Like, I just think that there should not be an issue of eating, of like making certain meals, certain foods. Like, for example, if a food is really good for you, like really nutritionally good for you, why not just eat it all the time? Such as oats. Why eat it only for breakfast? If it's truly that good for you, why don't you just eat it all the time? It blows my mind. If it truly was good for you and you wanted to eat it, why not eat it all the time? Why do you save it only? Why do you eat it only for breakfast? Of course, there's the aspect of being ritualistic. But if you're looking out for your health, why wouldn't you just eat it all the time? That I don't get. If it was not nutriently dense, I would get it. Just only eat it for one meal. That's fine. I mean, that's pretty much why breakfast is the way breakfast is. I don't know. I eat differently, I think.